Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Daysofourlives, December 29th, 2025. So we start off with Steve and Alex and Stephanie at this point. They're still rooming together. Alex and Stephanie can't get a break because every time they're alone and they're, showing any kind of affection, Steve walks in on them and it's awkward, right? So Alex is also preparing a dinner for all of them, except Kayla because Kayla has a late night shift and she's not able to join them. So Alex has, Adrian's lasagna making, and of course, he has to fill big shoes on that, but they are supposed to be having a meal together. So at this point, they're still, worried about who's really after Stephanie, and Steve is not trying to stop what he's doing because at the end of the day, Stephanie could be in real danger. So they were supposed to invite some people, however, it didn't pan out. But Kayla was able to join them after all because she had somebody cover her shift in the meanwhile. So she comes over and they start talking about, who could be the possible stalker behind, Stephanie and Steve and Stephanie are thinking that it's possibly Jeremy because of their past and because he's ambidextrous. And I'm saying, I can't wait till it's proven that Jeremy is not behind this and Stephanie gonna owe him a big apologies. Even Alex himself, because honestly he keeps on wanting to put the blame on Jeremy, and sometimes he just doesn't think things through. He always just have to be so pig-headed about things. And even Kayla was saying that maybe it's not Jeremy, that would really do Julie more harm than good. It would cause more drama. She doesn't need that, and maybe it could be somebody else, maybe somebody not so obvious. And Alex is disagreeing, maybe it could be obvious, but I don't think Jeremy is behind this whole thing. What do you guys think? So at this point, they have dinner, and Kayla decides to, come up with a plan. You know that Jada has a security guard outside the apartment door, right? So at this point, she's hinting that Steve can come home for Christmas, spend some time with his wife, and Alex and Stephanie can have the room to themselves or the apartment to themselves. And of course, they're happy about it, being alone and, being able to do what they do best, which is, show affection, overly show affection, and just keep on, hopping into the bed. Because honestly, apart from this half interesting storyline, there's nothing more to Alex and Stephanie. There's not much personality there. Honestly, I just fast forward through their scenes because there's nothing that worth catching into them, honestly. So anyways, Steve and Kayla, they do go out to the square, and Kayla is happy to have her husband alone at home to herself. The fact that they don't have no kids at home anymore, they do miss them. They are looking forward to also going to trips and Wendy's wedding sometime soon, but they do enjoy having the home to themselves, and they did kiss under the mistletoe. The same thing happened to Stephanie and Alex, and they exchanged gifts. They had some laundry and some other things they wanted to reenact, and yeah, that was really it. Now Roman, let me tell you, Roman and Marlena, they happen to be the most friendliest exes I've ever seen. But it's cool when you can really get along with the person that you share the life with, part of your life with, and children with, right? So he comes to, check in on her, because she's back from the hospital, and, she tells him that, Rachel was there earlier, but Brady had to, bring her back to Bayview. So also he realized that she's alone and how is she feeling. She said she hasn't really, she's getting used to it at this point being alone, but at the same time she doesn't know how to process her emotions. And Roman said it's okay. Like, it hasn't been that long ago where you lost John, and it's okay to feel how you feel. Like, process it. So at some point she breaks down and she tells him that she misses him, and it's all understood, right? So he takes her for a walk in the square, and he also invites her back to the pub so that to see Kate and everything, and not to be alone on Christmas, and she accepts his offer. Now, speaking of Kate, right? Kate was already at the pub with her two sons. Lucas and Philip. So they were just catching up. Of course, she had to meddle in their personal lives, asking Lucas, who's a special person that he's been seeing. And he said that he wanted to keep it on the wraps. They've been seeing each other for a few months. And, it's just like that. She asked him if he heard from Sammy, and he said, not really. Like, Ali sent me a picture of the wedding announcement and a Christmas card that she got from her mom. So that was how I even know when the wedding's happening, right? Also, she asked about Philip, what's going on with him, because Philip has been seeing Gabby for a while, and he said he hasn't feel this way since Chloe. Of course, Kate is not really fond of Chloe. She didn't even want the lady's name being mentioned at the table, but of course they said, oh, we don't have to really talk about Chloe. So of course, Philip is gonna rub it in her face as usual, which I always find funny, right? So anyways, they moved on from that, and they talk about the novel, and that it's going really well. They also mentioned Bonnie's writing a novel, and maybe there could be mentions of Lucas in there. And I'm trying to remember, like, she and Lucas were a thing. And I guess according to Lucas thought, Bonnie was Asian, because, there are lookalikes, the same actress playing this two different characters, right? So I'm trying to remember. Lucas was with Bonnie at some point. Like Lucas was with Adrian slash Bonnie. When did that happen? So also what happened today was Rafe telling Gabby Stefan has passed away. So she's like, no, like she doesn't feel it in her heart. She doesn't believe that, that could have happened. Like, where did he hear this from? Like how, what, when, how this happened? So he tells her that, when Peter had the Demaras kidnapped, he confirmed that, Stefan has passed, and he also checked in with Vivian, who is Stefan's mom. And Vivian also confirmed that he passed away, and then she sent more information and a picture of his tombstone, and that his heart gave out. And Gabby has so many questions. Gabby's like, why should we take any truth from this lady? Like, this lady is a born actress. She's a born liar. And first of all, like, why she didn't confide to me, like, what happened? I was his wife. And regardless of, like, our ups and downs and that he cheated on me, like, I still care about him, right? So, you can tell that Gabby still has unresolved feelings, and that she's seeing somebody as well. And, I was wondering, like, is it going to mess up things with her and Philip? Because Philip has been really good to her. So at some point, she just needed time to herself, and she told him that she just needed to be alone. So Rafe and Ari are talking amongst each other, and Ari's worried about her mom, that, is she going to be okay through this? And Rafe is like, once I confirm the information, we're going to be there for her in any type of way, and don't worry about it. Your mom wouldn't want you to be worried, considering you have school and all that. So she said, I also started an internship, and she wanted me to give it up, and he said he heard about that. And she said that, great grandma Kate put in a word for her Demira, and, Gabby was really worried about her taking the job, but, she shouldn't be worried, because she's just going to be in the mail room and all that. And, grandma Kate was able to put in a word and make sure that it happened. So, Rafe was skeptical about this whole involvement from Kate. So let's see what happens with that. I don't know. Kate is up to something, but I can't put a finger on it. Now, moving forward, Roman brought Marlena to the pub, and they all sit down, and Marlena's like, oh, I'm not intruding, and Kate said, no, you can sit down. So Marlena asks Lucas if everything is going well with him and Sammy, and he said yes, everything has been going on well. They also talk about the novels, and we'll possibly write a screenplay based off the novel that Stephanie wrote. Also, they talk about the whole thing with the stalkers, and they have the securities on lock. And Roman made a statement, which I don't think he was intentionally trying to hurt Marlena, but it rubbed her the wrong way, because he's saying that Steve has also taken on the case, and it's a lot on him, because he's the only one managing Black Patch. Steve and John, they were partners in Black Patch, and now that he's gone, it's on Steve. And Marlena felt triggered by that, because she is still grieving, and is still sore to her, and he apologizes to her for that, and she breaks down, and he hugs her. And you can tell Kate felt a little type of way, kind of uncomfortable, and Lucas was telling her something about Ali, but then, he asked her if she's okay, and she said, yeah, just cool. And you can tell she feels the type of way. I mean, she can be gracious, but at the same time, that's her husband, and, I don't know if, like, I keep saying this from the other time, like when Roman and Marlena were spending time together. How is this affecting Kate? Because Kate has been very gracious, and it's understandable, but at the same time, that's still your husband, and you do want time with him. Like, hopefully Roman does not, let this overplay him and Kate's marriage because of, him and Marlena's history. Like, yeah, you can be their supportive friend and everything, but don't let it come in the way of your marriage. So anyways, Gabby was in the square just thinking about everything. Philip comes over because he was about to see her and give her gift, but you can tell something's wrong. And she said that, I can't believe I feel any type of way about it. And she tells him that Stefan might be dead. And she tells him the information that Vivian, possibly confirmed it, but she doesn't know if it's true or not. But at the same time, like, why she wouldn't confide in her that, her ex-husband has passed. And, Philip knows that this is how Vivian acts, but he's asking her, like, how do you really feel about it? Because, that was your ex-husband. She said that even though me and him are separated and I told him you're dead to me, like, I still care about him. And I don't know why I feel like that, right? Why do I still carry feelings for this guy? Like, he said, because you used to love him. Like, that's okay. And I'm glad you're telling me this. Like, how can I make you feel better? She said she doesn't want to go home to Rafe and Ari. So he says, come to my place. We can watch movies, have dessert, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And she said, okay, I'd like that, right? But I just feel in my heart of hearts that Stefan is not deceased. Like, there's no way Stefan, passed off. And that could be a fake tombstone Photoshop. Come on now. Like, Stefan can't just pass away. I don't care what they say about Hart giving out that this is Salem, this is Days. He's not going nowhere. But guys, comment below your thoughts on today's episode. Let me know. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys tomorrow.